Hello, my name is Miko Peled. I'm speaking to you from Washington, D.C. And it's a pleasure to speak to my friends and colleagues and comrades in Cuba. I want to start by talking about the appalling terrorist attack that took place just days ago against the Cuban embassy here in Washington, D.C., the Molotov cocktails. I actually live very, very close to the embassy, and it's absolutely appalling, and thankfully nobody was hurt. And hopefully the authorities will find the perpetrators of this terrible terrorist attack. I also want to mention that I had the great pleasure of meeting President Diaz-Canel in New York when he was here for the UNGA. I heard him speak during the reception, and then during the comments from the audience I said a few words about Palestine. And then we had a chance to shake hands and take a photo, which was very nice. And while we did that, the president kind of put his arm on my shoulder and said, Palestina, Palestina, indicating what is well known, of course, that Cuba stands firmly and feels very strongly about Palestine. So that was a real pleasure, and I'm very happy I had the chance to meet him and hear him. I want to say, I think it's time to change course regarding Palestine. The common wisdom about Palestine is that there's this thing called the two-state solution, which is the solution, and that the Palestinian Authority supposedly is the representative of the Palestinian issue. And this is very problematic because the notion of the two-state solution legitimizes the perpetrator of the terrible crimes against the Palestinians, which is the State of Israel. And so this solution only allows Israel, or gives Israel license, if you will, to continue doing what it's doing. And we've seen over the decades when this idea of the two-state solution has been, there have been attempts to implement it, all we saw was a strengthening of Israel internationally and a worsening of the conditions of Palestinians on the ground everywhere, really, whether they're in refugee camps in Lebanon, or where they are in Gaza, the Gaza Strip, or throughout all of Palestine. Even Palestinians who hold Israeli citizenship, their conditions are worsening day by day because Israel is becoming stronger. And so the calls for normalization with Israel that we're seeing now, particularly from Saudi Arabia and other Arab and Muslim countries, are very troubling. They're worrisome, because the more legitimacy Israel receives, the farther away Israel will be from actually allowing the Palestinians to exercise their rights. And we're talking about the right to live, never mind the right to self-determination, never mind civil rights and human rights, but the right to live. And so this thought process, this construct of a two-state solution which legitimizes Israel, that we can somehow have an Israel and a Palestine and they can both live in peace, is misguided. It's been seen and proven to be untrue. And so I strongly, very strongly suggest and invite policymakers to reject the two-state solution, to reject any legitimacy to the State of Israel, or any solution which provides legitimacy to the State of Israel. Now, it is not broadly known, and it is not well known enough that credit needs to be given to Cuba, because it is, I believe, the only country in Latin America, or in the Americas at all, that does not recognize the State of Israel, and that is extremely important. We also, I don't need to remind people about the crucial role that Cuba played in the fall of apartheid in South Africa. Cuba sent tanks to Angola. One can hardly imagine a bigger contribution. We don't need tanks in the case of Palestine, but we do need a firm commitment to ending the apartheid state, to rejecting racism, to rejecting the violence that has been perpetrated against Palestinians, and to recognize fully and officially accept, the Amnesty International report on apartheid, which came out in early 2022, which says clearly that since its establishment, the State of Israel has been engaged in the crime of apartheid, which is a crime designated as a crime against humanity. So if more and more governments, more and more NGOs, more and more policymakers go back to that document and use it then that makes the struggle for Palestinians, it opens the door for the struggle for liberation. Because since Israel is the perpetrator of this crime, and I would take it one step further, Israel is the expression of the crime. Israel is the apartheid state. There is no apartheid without Israel. There is no Israel without apartheid. And so rejecting the calls for normalizations that we hear around the world now, and rejecting the call for what's known as the two-state solution, and demanding the end to the apartheid state, demanding a transition into a real democratic state with equal rights throughout all of historic Palestine. That should be the foreign policy of countries that maintain a moral stance, like Cuba, for example, and several others. Unfortunately, there aren't many. And so that really should be the direction that we go from this point forward. The normalization efforts are a death sentence. A death sentence. The two-state solution is a death sentence to Palestinians and to the issue of Palestine on the international stage. And so, once again, I want to thank Cuba for its maintaining a moral stance on the issue of Palestine. I want to encourage a conversation, a lively conversation on how to end the apartheid state and transform Palestine into a real democracy, a free democratic Palestine with equal rights. And once again, to thank President Diaz-Canel for his remarks here in New York during the UNGA and in the reception that we had. And I look forward to seeing all of you in person in Havana soon. Thank you very much.